All right, today we're going to be replacing the drive gear on a LiftMaster half-horse professional line garage door opener. And I replaced the gear in this one a few months ago, and now this one over here is stripped out. I don't know if you can see that yet. I'll get some light here in a minute. But this is a real common problem with these garage door openers. And when I say common, I mean it's just the first thing that's going to go out in these. These openers have been up here probably for 25 years, plus or minus. And this one just finally went out a while back. So it's not a huge deal. You just have to take a few things apart to get to the gear. You have to obviously take these two bolts out right here, 2 screws, 2 on this side, and then 1 on each end. They're recessed in there, so you gotta have a long screwdriver. I just ordered the gear online. Replacement gear, it was like probably 5 or 10 bucks, I don't remember. This is what it looks like. And this was the SKU number. And yeah, it was pretty basic, pretty easy thing to look up. So we're gonna get started on this, show you what needs to happen to get to that gear, what needs to come apart, so you can do this on your own. I'm a big believer that you can always save money if you can do things yourself, if you know the basics of how to do it. All right, I got some more light so you can get a better look at this garage door opener. I've already moved the shroud on this one. It's just 2 screws on each side and then 1 that goes to the end right up here, recessed pretty deep, about 1.5 inches, so you gotta have a screwdriver to fit in there. This is the half horsepower Security Plus LiftMaster professional line. I don't see a model number right offhand. As you can see, the worm gear here is still fine, but it is completely pulverized. The radial gear, it's completely destroyed. So, but everything else, when I replaced the twin over there, was fine. It was just this gear here. I don't know if it's because it gets dried out, no lubrication, or if it's just old enough that it just comes apart, but we're gonna get into this. Obviously, the first thing you wanna do is unplug your opener so that you don't get shocked, because you're gonna be working around some electrical parts. Obviously, you don't wanna get your hand in there and get shocked. You also wanna be careful not to break any of your electrical connectors off or mess with all your settings of your micro switches and stuff. This determines how far the door opens and closes. So just be careful when you're working around this stuff, not to mess everything up. If I remember from the last time, you're basically gonna have to drop all your pieces. You're gonna have to loosen this up because you have to get to some screws behind here, and there's some on the other side. You have to loosen these bolts here up that hold the top gear, because the gear is on this spindle, which is where the gear's at. You're gonna have to remove this center piece. So you gotta remove the screws so you can get the top loose, get this out of the way, loosen this up, and then these little gears here just come out of the bottom, and then you can slide this spindle up, I believe. It seems like a lot of work, but it's honestly not that bad once you get going. Just make sure you don't lose any of your screws, because you're gonna need them obviously to put it back together. The first thing you have to do once you get this out of the way is you have to drop your motor, because your motor and the worm gear over here have to come away from this part. And once you loosen these bolts up, actually, you'll first need to take these gears off here so that you can drop the motor. This little thing here, you just push. It's a little clip, little plastic clip. You just push it from the other side and it slides off like that. And then this little gear here slides down. I think it has to rotate too at the same time. Yep. Now, whenever you loosen this motor, this whole assembly will come down out of there with all your micro switches and everything. And these screws are also 5/16. Once you get them loose, you'll have to get them out with your fingers, because you'll have to have a hold of the motor as well. And make sure you undo your wire connectors to the limit switches so that when it comes down, you don't rip them off. These are some connectors you want to unhook. You just wiggle them, pull them, wiggle them, It should come undone. There. Remember which way they were on. Smooth the wires out of the way. The black one went to this connector. The yellow one goes to this closer connector. And then this brown one fishes over this, through this little keeper around the front. You want to make sure you get the wires back right so they don't get caught in your gears. Now we're basically ready to drop this electric motor. As you can see, what I did was I just let that motor hang from the wires so I didn't have to disconnect it all. But you gotta let that motor down really nice and easy so that it doesn't rip your wires out of these connectors. But if you didn't want to just let it hang like that, you'd have to remove this whole circuitry and everything. Or another option would be to take like a bungee cord or something and strap this motor up to the frame here. But this is what worked for me. All right, like I said, I just let this motor, electric motor, hang here. It would be nice to be able to get it outside to blow this off so I don't get the dust in here, but I'll have to figure something out. I just don't want to have to take any of this extra stuff apart. I just try to get the job done with the least amount of work, obviously. Now that I got this motor dropped, the wires unhooked, I'm ready to loosen this up and pull this out so I can get this gear switched over. Once I unhook this, take these screws loose, this gear will move forward and it'll loosen the chain up. And I just usually let the chain rest right here against this rail to keep it up where it should be. These are also 5/16 socket. Make sure before loosening that all up that you've released your garage door so that there's not any pressure on it. This little safety cap just pulls off. And as you can see, my gear's coming loose. So I'm gonna take this chain and get it off of this and just hook it right here, just like that. Okay, just a view from this side. I got the motor dropped, hanging from the wires here. It's actually hanging from this side and this side. And like I said, don't drop that hard. Let it down super, super easy. Have the wires on the other side unhooked, and I've loosened two, actually all three of the screws. I still have one little screw in here, which loosened the chain up here. I pulled the chain off once it was loose and just hooked it right there on the railing. So I'm gonna take this last screw out. I'll be able to get that spindle out. And what's nice is the hole in the top is just big enough for that gear to fit through, so you can get it out to replace it. It's snowing. All right, so this is the new gear. As you can see, it's just like the old gear. And if I remember right, it doesn't matter. There's not a top or bottom. It's exactly the same no matter which direction you put it on there. But you have to smack this pin out with a punch. Then this gear will slide off, and you can slide the new one on and reinsert your pin. Obviously, when you are smacking the pin out, your punch is going to have to go past the plastic. And it doesn't matter if you damage this plastic gear because it's obviously no good anymore. So I got the pin down in there. I use a smaller punch to finish it up. There we go. gonna smack the pin back in with the new gear on. And I'm using a larger punch so I don't mushroom out the pin. All right, it's about perfect, equal on each side. All right, now it's just reverse order. And I got a little ahead of myself. You have to hook the chain back up here before you try to get this back in place, or else you can't get your chain hooked up. So I gotta take this back out, hook my chain back up, and then put my bolts back in. Actually, I just remembered what I did last time. So your chain has a tightening bolt right up there that keeps your chain the right tension for operating your garage door. So what I did last time was I loosened that up, and then that gave me enough slack so I didn't have to fight the weight of the chain to get that sprocket back on. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that up again. Don't move this nut. That way when you tighten it back up, you'll be right back to the same tension you had when you started. All right, that should make things a lot easier to get this back together. Oh yeah, a lot more slack. Now we can turn this if we need to put that carriage in the right position down there. We won't tighten all that up till we get all this together. All right, we're gonna bolt the motor back up. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to grease up that gear while I can get to it easily. I'm gonna use some white lithium grease. And I am gonna blow off this all this dust that's accumulated here from the old sprocket. I'm just gonna blow it off in a direction that hopefully is closer to the door so I can sweep it out. As you can tell, the worm gear is made of a different material. It's a different color plastic, which I don't know if it's so much of the material or just what the function of that gear is, but it's still good shape. It makes it nice because you don't have to replace that. You have to just replace that gear up here. So I got this gear all greased up. Now I think we're ready to put this motor back up. Get my four bolts started, and then we'll tighten them up. I should have said this at the beginning. You know, this is most likely the problem when you go to open your garage door and you just hear the motor running, but the door never moves. Or maybe a grinding noise a little bit, and that usually means this gear is bad. The other side of this little bracket just fits up in a hole, square hole, and that holds the other side, and then the screw goes on this side. Gotta hook my wires back up, and then I think we're ready to put the shroud back on. When I put those electrical clips connectors back together, kind of support it from the back so they don't snap off my little micro switches. So I got the yellow wire goes here, remember? The brown, actually the gray, goes second farthest, and then the brown one feeds through, goes on this side, and goes to these little keepers right here. All right, so we got all the pieces together on that end, and I'm gonna tighten this back up on this end. Okay, so I gotta tighten back up. It's pretty hard when you take the sprocket off and the chain off the sprocket, and you loosen all this up. You know, this carriage isn't completely lined up perfectly, and who knows, it might have been that way originally, but there's a good chance when I start this up the first time that I'm gonna need to adjust my micro switches a little bit, which is completely normal. Just be watching everything when you do it to make sure you don't have a crash. Get ready to stop it. Before I put this all back together, I'm gonna plug it back in and make sure everything is working like it should, so in case I need to fix something, I don't have to take it all back apart. I just put that little safety cap back on the top there. And now I'm gonna plug this back in. All right, let's give it a shot. I gotta release this little lever so it re-engages. There we go. If it goes too far and starts getting close to that bolt in the back, I'm gonna stop it. Wow, that was close. So it might need to adjust a little bit. As you can see, the height of the door is plenty high. So I'm going to probably have to adjust that micro switch just a little bit. It looks like it's pretty good on that side. I might just back that off a hair too, because it's pushing down a little bit hard, but not bad. But I can adjust all this once I get the shroud back on, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that back together. Pay attention because the two holes here have to line up with the adjusters on the other side. So the holes go on this side where those two micro switch adjustments are. These screws I never took out because they were so far down in there, so I just gotta try to make sure this is lined up and tighten them back up. These screws on the end are a pain. This one here is missing, and they don't really serve a super important function, so I wouldn't even worry about them too much. They have two up here that hold the rest of it on anyway. So now I'm gonna adjust the micro switches over here. Obviously it tells you to go, to increase the down travel, you go this way, counterclockwise on this one, and to increase the up travel, you go clockwise on this one. So I'm going to obviously reduce the up travel for a little bit on this one. That looks real nice on the down. Like I said, all you do is rotate this. I'm going to rotate this to the left a little ways. Try it again. Still hitting that hard. Oh, that's a lot better. Perfect. So as you can see, everything works fine now. And that took me probably an hour or two, and that was with me recording this on top of trying to work on it. So it's not too bad of a job and saves you a lot of money. A lot more money than calling a repairman. So good luck if you try it on your own. Until next time, take it easy.